A few reminders before we start. Please use the prescribed Zoom name format on your screens. Keep your microphones on mute as default. Questions and clarifications may be raised during the open forum session after the panel discussion using the Zoom chat box feature. Welcome to this year's Kapihan Media Forum, where we will be officially launching the Jobsfit COVID-19 Labor Market Information Report prepared by the Bureau of Local Employment. The Jobsfit COVID-19 LMI report is a medium-term update of the Jobsfit 2022 LMI report, focusing on how the COVID-19 pandemic is reshaping the labor market. Today, we will hear insights from various stakeholders representing industry and employer associations, labor group, national government agencies, and job boards. To formally start this forum, let us all welcome Labor and Employment Secretary Silvestre H. Bello III.
To all panelists and reactors from industry associations, labor groups and job boards, our Dole senior officials, fellow public servants, our friends from media, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning. For the past years, notable improvements have been evident on the employment situation in the country. In October 2019, we recorded the lowest unemployment rate at 4% and underemployment rate at 13% as more jobs were generated. We were even starting to reap the benefits of the government's flagship projects such as Build, Build, Build program. Those were indeed bright spots in our employment situation. But the onslaught of COVID pandemic last year disrupted this growth. We experienced record highs and lows in our key employment indicators. By the fourth quarter, the economy is slowly recovered with GDP contraction of 8.3%, while the unemployment rate dropped to 8.7%. Aside from the economic and social recovery from the impacts of the crisis, the Filipino labor market is also faced with the adaptation to the trends brought about by digital revolution. Both workers and businesses need to cope by utilizing new and emerging technologies, particularly in improving workers' employability and business productivity. Immediate recovery is what the government intends to attain. The recently adopted National Employment Recovery Strategy, NERS for short, provides a whole nation action plan on creating employment opportunities and improving employability of our workers. Part of the action plan is, of course, to facilitate access to labor market through timely, relevant, and accurate labor market information. This is why today we are sharing with you the Jobsfit COVID-19 LMI report. This provides information on the current labor market landscape and describes the labor market in the new normal with the in-demand and emerging jobs of the future. This is an avenue for a discussion of the key results of the report. This also presents an opportunity for us to build stronger ties as we work together in enabling our labor force towards a recharged and reinvigorated labor market. With this, allow me to welcome all of you to this forum. Thank you very much, and may we have a fruitful learning experience. Magandang umaga po.
Thank you, Secretary Bello. We have really gone a long way with our labor and employment reforms through various initiatives and programs to safeguard our workers. and we are with you in rebuilding the confidence of our workers amidst the pandemic. Moving on, we have prepared an audiovisual presentation to show you the highlights of the aforementioned report. But before that, to help me share with you how we came up with this report, we have with us Assistant Secretary for General Administration's Cluster, Assistant Secretary Dominique Rubia-Tutay. Asek, good morning.
Good morning, Nick, and magandang umaga po sa lahat ng ating mga media partners, sa lahat po ng ating mga nanonood live on Facebook, at syempre sa atin pong mga panelists. I'm deeply honored po na we are joined by the labor groups, the employer sector, our partners from TESDA. Maraming salamat po. The DOLE undertook the midterm update of the Jobsfit 2022 Labor Market Information Report, particularly focusing on the shift of the employment landscape induced by the COVID-19 pandemic. The review process relied on secondary sources such as the national surveys from the labor force survey of the PSA, administrative data, published researches and studies, among others. The department, through the Bureau of Local Employment, also conducted an online survey to randomly selected PESOs nationwide, or our Public Employment Service offices nationwide, which are our employment intermediaries at the local level, to properly account the current employment situation in the regional level. Our DOLE regional offices submitted regional reports highlighting their respective key employment generators in their respective region and also the in-demand occupations.
Thank you, Asek. With that, together, let us all watch the Jobsfit COVID-19 LMI report official audiovisual presentation. Dole Bureau of Local Employment Facebook page. So para po sa mga hindi nakapanood or you might have missed this session, you can also access or watch the video earlier. At this point, and as mentioned earlier, we have invited our friends and partners to share with us their comments and insights on the JobsFit LMI report. Our first panelist is a leader who recognizes the value of each employee to the company and the importance of prioritizing their welfare and development. As the country manager of the country's largest talent sourcing website, he has repeatedly rallied the company toward the advocacy of a job for every Filipino. He has established collaboration with government agencies like DOLE, Civil Service Commission, and the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration or POEA. He also worked with non-government organizations like Project Inclusion, Philippine Business for Social Progress, and various private institutions advocating for technology and innovations not only to increase but provide equal access to available job opportunities in the country and abroad. Let us welcome Mr. Philip Gioca of Jobstreet Philippines.
Okay. Hi, good morning.
Morning, sir. Our next panelist is a former Secretary General of the Confederation of Labor and Allied Social Services and Assistant General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines or TUCP. He finished his undergraduate studies at the University of Perpetual Help Rizal, taking up Bachelor of Science, major in Business Management. He is an alumnus of the Global Labor University Master of Arts program on labor policies and globalization in Berlin, Germany. He also worked as project coordinator of the former International Textile, Garment, and Leather Workers Federation and campaign coordinator for Play Fair in the Philippines. At present, he serves as the country coordinator for Industry All Global Union, a Philippine project on union building. He is also a senior lecturer at the University of the Philippines School of Labor and Industrial Relations or UP Soler. Everyone, Mr. Ramon Certeza.
Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat.
Morning, sir. We are also joined today by one of the notable public servants in the country. She is a holder of bachelor's degree in chemistry and further pursued law. She started her career at the Philippine National Police as a forensic chemist. She also held other positions in the PNP Crime Laboratory, Directorate of Operations, Police Regional Office, and the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or PDEA. Later on, she became the director of the PNP Human Rights Affairs Office and the Police Security and Protection Group. Currently, the following offices are under under Test Operations Cluster are under her leadership. Certification Office, Regional Operations Management Office, Public Information Division, Human Resource Development Institute, World Skills Philippines, and National Language Skills Institute. Let us all welcome Deputy Director General for Technical Education and Skills Development Operations and the designated TESDA official spokesperson, BBG Lina Sarmiento. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Next stop is our friend from the employer group. He acquired his bachelor's degree from the University of the Philippines and Master of Arts in Industrial Economics from the University of Asia in the Pacific, where he also pursued certificate in business economics. He is one of the foundations of various institutions and multinational companies, namely Fiesta Brands, Orient Multi-Food Manufacturing Corporation, and San Miguel Corporation. He also served as a consultant and advisor to the Department of Health, Invest in Davao Project and Academy for Educational Development under the United States Agency for International Development or USAID, Helen Keller Foundation, and the United Nations Children's Fund or UNICEF. He also held various chairmanship to committees at the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry or the PCCI and the Employers Confederation of the Philippines or ECOP, where he is presently one of the governors. Please welcome Mr. Antonio Sayo. Good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning. Hi, good morning. Glad to be here.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, esteemed guests, and thank you for gracing this forum. We have prepared few questions for us to discuss. With me is Asik Nikki to also join us on this discourse. So to begin with, um, let us first discuss the importance of labor market information, especially during this time of pandemic. So maybe begin with Asik Nikki.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning once again. At maraming salamat po sa aming mga panelists who are able to join us this morning. Sir Anton, Sir Ramon, Sir Philip, and syempre si Ma'am Lina. So yung labor market information po is really very important. It has been the works of the Bureau of Local Employment and also the Department of Labor and Employment to provide timely labor market intelligence in terms of what's the supply, what's the demand, ano po yung mga key employment generating sectors and also yung mga in-demand and hard-to-fill occupations. This would provide, of course, our workforce development agencies such as TESDA, such as DepEd and also CHED para i-produce nila yung tamang workforce na kinakailangan naman ng ating mga industriya. But medyo nagkagulo yung labor market natin nung nag-hit na po yung COVID-19 pandemic. Alam natin there were so many jobs that have been lost. And nakita rin natin yung how the COVID-19 has fast-tracked the fourth industrial revolution. Kasi even prior to 2020, we're already gearing towards the fourth industrial revolution. But nakita natin yung mga nag-emerge na occupations, yung mga tasks and the skills required during the COVID-19 pandemic, talagang it hastened yung tinatawag po natin na digital skills. Kasi lahat ng trabaho halos kailangan meron kang gadget, meron kang connectivity, meron kang communication. So how important it is as we recover now, kasi nagiggear na po tayo sa recovery from this pandemic with the vaccines being available na po the soonest possible time. Yung pag-open po gradually, and I think ayoko nga sabihin gradually, gusto ko sana mabilis para mas mabilis po makarecover yung labor market po natin. So it's important that yung pong mga job seekers natin na medyo matagal na rin pong natenga, dapat alam nila ano yung i-expect nila sa labor market pag ito ay 100% na po nagbukas. And it's not just about yung skills natin, technical skills, but it's also yung mental, yung physical, wellness natin. Dapat ihanda po natin yun. But more importantly, ano ba yung hinahanap nga ng ating mga industriya na uusbong pag inopen natin fully yung ating ekonomiya. So this is how important labor market is para handa po tayo sa pagharap natin when we are seeking jobs, when we are undergoing interviews, or when we are preparing for our resumes.
Right, I agree with that, Asik Nikki. How about our other panelists? Can you share with us your insights on the importance of the labor market information during this time of pandemic? So, as Asik Nikki mentioned earlier, this pandemic almost toppled or changed the Philippine labor market landscape. So, with that, how can we advocate for LMI, for our workers, for the government agencies, or other sectors of our economy for us to recover as one with the pandemic?
Yeah, may I?
Go ahead, sir.
You know what you're doing is very good. No, you're trying to break down what's happening in the macroeconomic sector down to its finer points. No? Because when people just talk about the GDP going down, henceforth we have a recession, that has a tendency to put a lot of dampeners to a lot of things, you know? And we forget that GDP is agriculture, industry, and services, and industry has manufacturing, construction, and so forth. You know? So there are many bright lights there in construction, for example, from horizontal construction to vertical to condominiums and whatnot. So what you're doing is very good because we now flesh in on those sectoral bright points that we need to concentrate on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that, that's a good point to take para maging holistic approach yung recovery natin with this. So as mentioned, this should include all sectors, the agriculture industry and our services sector.
Yep.
Moving forward, so
Yes, can I just add to that as
yes,
well?
sir, please.
So this is really good that, quite impressive in terms of the research that has made and the data that you are sharing, because it prepares two sectors in my mind. One of the sectors would be those who are actually trying to find jobs, and also the other sector will be the people employing. No? So the job seeker and the hirer. So on the job seeker side, one of the things that is really important is for them to look at the other industries that has booming. So some industries went down, some industries went up. So this is a very important point where to look for jobs, because these are the types of jobs that are available. And so if I am fit for that job, then I can try and apply for that. Depending on the skill sets that I have. On the other side of the coin, the hirers, these are the types of information that I would be needing. What kind of trends that I see that I could try to venture in, especially those who are trying to set up small businesses. Which sectors can I implore to? So these are good information that can actually be very relevant to those types of users.
And I think it's also parang it's timely because for instance sa TESDA po, ano ba yung dapat na gawin nila in terms of the programs where our workers would want to retool or reskill. Ito po, pagdating sa information, very critical yung ino-offer po natin so that maging handa hindi lamang po yung industry na magbubukas, kundi pati na yung mga job seekers na kailangan nilang somehow mag-shift from one skill to another.
Yes, on the part of TESDA, alam naman natin ang mandate ng TESDA is to formulate, coordinate, and integrate technical education and skills development policies. This is, of course, in response to development goals. No? So napaka-importante yung labor market intelligence because we are supposed to implement demand-driven training programs. No? So kung ano yung kailangan ng industry, yun dapat ang programs na ini-implement ng TESDA. No? At of course, meron tayong national technical education and skills development plan. Ito ay palaging sinusunod at of course this is based on consultations with the industry. Kaya talaga this is really very important to us. We have a lot of scholarship programs. We have 10 billion pesos worth of scholarship programs for our workers displaced or those who want to be upskilled or skilled. So importante that these scholarship funds are placed or are given to necessary skills. Ano ba ang kailangan talaga ng industry so that there will be jobs. We can supply the requirements of the industry.
I agree, DDG Lina. So it is really very important that given the changes of the pandemic, upskilling and reskilling is very important to go along or go beyond with the changes in the labor market landscape. And having said that, can you guys share with us the specific sectors that are thriving amidst the pandemic?
Okay, let me go to that. That's my one of the things that I'm really looking at on almost on a daily basis. So indeed, the data that was shared earlier was really good. Just to supplement that, so we are aligned in the industries that have continues to provide jobs in the last 7 to 9 months of the pandemic. So these are the BPO jobs that has been consistently growing, and I think we can learn so much from the BPO on how they pivoted their policies and their processes to adapt to this pandemic situation. We can also see the government increase their their number of vacancies and their demand in job seekers. You can also see the recruitment firms and consulting firms involved in this because they had to also pivot and supply for companies that are looking for job labors now. Retail and merchandise, manufacturing, and the big wave on the computer and IT. These are the top industries that has been thriving in during the pandemic, and we can learn a lot from them. However, on the flip side of it, we know that the people or the industries that are into the entertainment or giving vacation luxuries to us has been really badly affected, and hopefully, as soon as the vaccine comes in, this sector or industry will thrive again. So that's all I could share for now.
Thank you, sir. How,
Kanina si Sir Sir Anton. I think he mentioned about the construction and
Yeah.
totoo po 'yon, construction is really supposedly actually nag-boom na po siya Sir Anton in
Yeah.
his administration, but I think marami pa tayong as you mentioned, maraming bright spots.
Yeah. If I may add a few more ideas. Well, good morning again, uh, Ma'am Nikki and DDG Lina. No? Nice to see you. Yeah, sorry, I did not greet you first a while ago. But anyway, just to continue with what I said, and speaking about the bright spots. Well, the bright spots stem from these industries that are still moving. No, of course, we mentioned construction. We mentioned logistics because the logistics naman is a necessary activity of certain sectoral activities that are still moving. Even in the export sector, there are bright spots there. No? So you have logistical support, import export documentation. In the area of health, we do have all those healthcare services, including cleaning equipment and supplies. And the upskilling and reskilling there happens when janitorial agencies, for example, get to imbibe more health protocols, no? Not only in equipment but also in the way they handle patients and visitors. No? So those things are happening. We uh, in one sector that of course is affected in the services side, of course, as you know, would be hotels and restaurants, and the value chain there involves a lot of informal subsectors, no. And in one of our meetings, we discussed the issue of how we can revive them quickly. And our ECO president at the time, Mr. Ortiz Luis, mentioned, we used to spend 78 billion in the food program. We just give it every month. So why don't we consider giving the informal sector, which has formal structures within? No? We have the microfinance industry that can in fact pay. Now, if you give them a grant of, let's say, 10 billion, and they have uh, countless of recipients, no, and they do give business services. They, other than giving loans, they have these poverty indices that they monitor, and so uh, the services sector, which has been accounting for a larger bulk of our economy, is also the most affected. I mean, we mentioned the bright spots, no, and policy wise, we do need a lot of well, as ECOP says, agile, resilient policies that can be given there, no? And also on the local government unit side, you know, I've had experience with TESDA, DOLE, and and our colleagues there are like the private sector. When we talk to you, it's as if we're talking to each other, no? But sad to say, some of our LGUs, when you talk about ease of doing business, they're not doing their jobs. We do hope that this aspect of ease of doing business is actually addressed forcefully in some of our LGUs. Some of our LGUs are doing well, and some are business savvy. They know what their firms need, and they go into it. No, but see, the point is, when we talk about sectoral growth patterns, we have to look at how specific sectors are affected by specific LGU policies as well. No? And some of these are really, really very restrictive. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, Sir Anton, kasi nga marami ring pumupunta sa amin na especially for the transport and logistics sector, sinasabi nila iba-iba yung pamamaraan from one LGU to another. So I think that's being addressed already by the DILG, and hopefully po, syempre ang mandato naman magagaling from the national to the local. We really do hope na ang ating mga local government units would also look into the ease of doing business, lalong-lalo na sa halimbawa sa mga startups, and even as the companies reopen as well. Medyo kailangan natin ngayon ng mas flexible, we need flexibility pagdating doon sa mga processes natin at the local level.
Yeah, Ma'am Nikki, if I may mention something very specific that came into my mind, the Bambi Law. No, the Bambi Law, the local government units, they tend to question a lot of things that these guys are doing. No, I mean, they have 6, 7, 8 employees, and of course, inevitably they make use of their children who are not in school. No, and they come up with all these hindrances for those companies that have applied for the Bambi Law to be difficult for them to have those incentives. So that's just one area that we need some policy tweaking to see to it that we limit things that negatively impact on things that are already in the implementing rules and regulations of the law. Access to finance, access to market services, access to even health services. Yun lang po.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sir Anton and Asik Nikki. How about perhaps Mr. Certeza, Sir Ramon can also share his insights on the thriving sectors amidst the pandemic.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, thank you, Asik Nikki, and to all my co-discussants. Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me once again to join this presentation of the labor market information report. So actually, we are coming from the manufacturing unions, and we have been also continually monitoring the new potential and opportunities, and the possibility of the new jobs that are coming in, particularly in the in the manufacturing sector. As you well know that we already have our comprehensive national industrialization strategy, and we have been actively participating in those discussions to look on what are the emerging job opportunities, most especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. And it is really commendable that what we see in the report of the Bureau of Local Employment was really commendable, considering that the assessment and monitoring of labor market was really timely. And as we look that there are many jobs that are now generating during this pandemic. But looking closely, especially on the manufacturing sector, we can see that uh, in the news and in some of the movements in the industry that there are some aspect of coming up with the inflow of a volume of work coming from the outsourced jobs in digital labor platforms. That was really reported by the International Labor Organization. And also looking at the possibility of, as what I've mentioned earlier by our friend in the job street, that there are also some potential for those digital jobs, like, of course, we have this call center, the BPOs, boys and non-boys. We also have this virtual assistant and other IT-related jobs. But you can also see that in manufacturing, we have this opening of the mining firms that will be going to start this year. I think that will complement in the build project of the government, but particularly looking on the aggregates, sand and gravel, limestones, and other minerals and non-metallic mineral resources. But of course, we also have to look to really maximize that employment opportunity. I think there should be a continuous discussion on the moving up on the value chain, meaning what we don't need just to export the raw minerals outside the country and then re-export back in the finished product. But I mean that 90% of those minerals are exported to China. So where are those linkage that could really jack up the employment opportunity for the Filipinos? And secondly, although there was an impact of the COVID in the automotive sector, but we can still see some potential for it to develop the technology and of course protect our automotive manufacturing industry by the influx of import. So we could really still see that there is still a potential. We have the Laguna, considered as a Detroit capital of the Philippines. We can still develop that. We can still have our electronic sector coming in because it is a second export dollar earner. We can still harness that potential, and we can still look on the garment sector as well. Although garment sector was not was being considered as a sunset industry, but with the emergence or resurgence of the garments or revitalization of the garments and inclusion in the industry roadmap, we can look also on the backward and forward linkages that could be harnessed in the future for employment. Thank you, Asek Nikki.
Ako, Sir Ramon, may nakikita po ba kayong changes in the processes in the manufacturing sector specifically? Kasi some would say na mas lumalakas na yung automation pagdating po sa processes instead of the manual work. May ganun na po bang nakikita po kayo?
Yeah, yes, that's a good question, Asik Nikki. Actually, we visited one of the car manufacturer in Laguna sometime in 2 years ago, and we saw that there are changes, particularly in the way the technology they have to adapt. But actually, although there are investment in modern technology, but this is not too much in compared to other countries, because we also visited other countries plant producing cars. Parang malayo pa tayo ron Asik Vicky. If you can see some of the car manufacturers in Germany, parang kang nasa ibang mundo Star Wars Pero when we visited the car manufacturer in Laguna, malayo pa tayo. But there are some department or production unit that are robotized, pero hindi doon pa lang sa isang part ng production process. But there is really need to upscale our technology to cope up with the changes, to be more competitive.
Thank you, sir. With all your inputs, we gathered the thriving sectors such as the BPO industry. Government also plays an important role in the recovery stage amidst the pandemic. We also have retail and merchandise, IT, of course, constructions and logistics, transportation, and the automotive. So indeed, I agree that construction and the manufacturing sector goes hand in hand, as well with the other sectors to help us cope up with the changes and the challenges of the pandemic. Given that, having said that, please provide the top 3 skills of the applicants or job seekers that the employers are looking for in the new normal. So what are our job seekers this time should possess to land a good job amidst the pandemic.
So maybe we can address the question to Sir Anton, and also to Sir Philip.
So maybe Anton would like to take this first.
Go ahead, Philip. Sir Anton.
Anton, you are on mute.
No, because okay. Ah, uh, as you want me to talk first? Okay.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. Please go ahead.
Let me just add another industry. I have to mention this because this is very quite revealing. I got this feedback from Yasaki Torres, and I asked if I can quote him, and he gamely said yes. Basically, this is what he said. From March 15, 2020, we locked down for 1 month, and we went back to gradual increase of our operation from April, from 30% of our capacity to 70% as of now. We were able to rehire back our employees of about 10,000 before the lockdown went down back to about 8 to 9,000. As of this time, we had to follow all the required protocols. So as of now, we are still in need of about 1,000 more people to replace those employees who have decided not to continue because of fear of the pandemic. So this is on wire harnesses. No, again, I agree with Mr. Certeza that we uh, we do still have a lot to do with uh, working on our mechanization in response to the fourth industrial revolution, and choosing specific industry uh, to to start automating. No? And there are a lot of policy changes that we need to address there, and we have conveyed that. Now, for example, when you buy an equipment that would help you on your R&D, you have to and the expenses related to that. So you hire a scientist, you need an IT expert to operate the console. All those you have to report in a single year, even if the income to be derived from that would come in on the third or on the fifth year. So there are many. Our BIR, they also have their objective of raising taxes. No? But if you do not shield them in areas like research and development that need a support mechanism, then we will not be able to move as fast as we want in the area of modernization. So we agree that there's a lot to be done on the upskilling and reskilling, and TESDA, DOLE are doing their best. But if we have this sector that continues to dampen. Recently in a DepEd forum, we have this adopt a school program where you would put in your apprentices, and you can train as much as 500, but and then there is an incentive mechanism for that, because you have your expenses. But before you can get those incentives from BIR, it takes at least a year, no? It's stuff like that. No? So I mentioned that not as a dampener, but just to be able to say that during this time, when we say collaboration, we need collaboration in the area of rules and regulations when it comes to our colleagues in certain portions of government. Now, going into to this point about innovations, the PCCI has established an innovation center, and it has partnered with Huawei in that field, no? And I just mentioned this now because works have been done months ago, and that was recently launched. So we're getting into big data, and we will soon want to work with DOLE and TESDA to come up with the data analytics on skills mismatch, to actually work on the demand and supply of skills per sector, per industry, so we can have a fast-paced data management to come up with the proper response to skills mismatching. So that's the PCCI side. On the ECOP side, a lot of impetus is being placed in the delineation of soft skills, in the area of soft skills development, and seeing to it that a lot of training is being done in that field, because a lot of our members are saying that we have suffered a lot in terms of the English language. And most of these manuals, most of these training uh, uh, modules are available in English. And of course, having a bad connection in certain areas is bad enough. Communicating with people who only understand 50% of what you're saying, or maybe less, is also worse. No, so I mean, we're all laying this in the table, not to criticize, but to say this has to be addressed. No? And we do agree with a lot of bright spots, and we need to mention that there are things that has to be addressed too. Thank you.
Okay, so just to add to the discussion, so we find that there are three top skills that within the pandemic has been always been rising. Number one is the adaptability. So because of the changes that's happening on a daily, weekly basis, from how we adapt to work, so adaptation is very important as a skill of survival and being productive, especially when we have flexible work arrangements happening already, and the balancing of work and productivity and family is becoming very, very challenging. Consequently, we also have to measure and improve our emotional intelligence, because right now, how do you really work and then be able to cope up with the stresses of work, but you are in a flexible working schedule, right? So that's one thing. And the top most that is being asked by hirers nowadays would be continuous learning, and this is um, pivoted by the request for upskilling and upgrading, as already mentioned by Sir Anton. um, because the digital space is very different. The way we work in a digital world is becoming different as well. However, there are intrinsic or basic importance, like English in the BPO sector. You can always hear them say a skills mismatch, English comprehension, and all of these things are important and actually basic. So before we could continuously learn and upgrade, these are the basics that we need to fix first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Anton.
I
And
may, if I may comment on, or may I add sa comments nung dalawa,
Yes,
yes,
ma'am.
go ahead.
something related to what they said, no. Um, TESDA is very flexible, no. We have our training regulations. I am pretty sure that both Philip and Anton are aware that we have training regulations, which I think I was told that they were last updated 2017, but our secretary, Isidro La Peña, has already directed our qualifications and standards office to update all those training regulations in consultation with the industry. Pero ang TESDA, kahit na may mga training regulations kami, we also are open to emerging skills, because these are very important. And this is the reason why we do skills mapping before we prepare our regional scholarship allocation plan. Importante kasi yun eh. Kung training kami ng training, hindi naman namin alam kung saan dadalhin yung mga tinitrain namin. Sayang yung resources ng gobyerno. So for skills that are required by the industry without training regulations, we do training, we do fund scholarship programs on courses without training regulations. I can cite some examples that we did just recently. There is a need to upskill our construction workers on scaffolding works we do not have a training regulation on scaffolding works inspection. And we met one former OFW who is an expert on scaffolding works inspection. And so we conducted a training program without training regulation on scaffolding works inspection. So maraming nag-attend. Many of them are based in the Middle East at marami din yung dito. And then another one, since one of the concerns now is food security, especially during the first few months of the lockdown last year. Talagang naramdaman natin kailangan pala talaga yung food security, and importante, we have to really also improve our agriculture, yung ating the way we implement our agricultural program. So agriculture is one of the top priorities, the other one being construction. So we are now coordinating with the fishery industry. Like for example, if you look at our training regulation, ang nakalagay lang doon na training regulation namin on fishery, fish capture. So this is ordinary fish capture, but we are now coordinating with the industry, specifically in Davao and in General Santos. By the way, I am Jensen right now. Para naman yung sonar naman, with the use of sonar. So this is very important. Yung mga fishermen natin, we will teach them on how to get involved in the fishery industry, na hindi yan lang yung ordinary na nagkakawil ng isda. So we are now closely coordinating with the fishing industry here in Jensen and in Davao to improve the skills of our fishermen. And then we also are closely coordinating with experts on drone technology. So mag-uumpisa na kami, drone technology for agriculture, kasi mas maraming magagawa, mas malaking production. And then mas marami tayong ma-entice na maging involved sa agriculture if we do something like this. So we are open to emerging skills. One of the skills that was brought to our attention is yung virtual assistant. Virtual assistant daw, kung meron na daw kaming training yan. So we are closely coordinating with the industry kung paano ba yung virtual assistant. Kasi sabi ni Secretary, ang kanyang policy is adapt and adapt. We do not have to recreate the wheel. We just adapt and adapt kung ano yung meron. And then when it comes, may mention si Anton yung tungkol sa apprenticeship, merong batas na 1994 pa, Republic Act 7686. This is the dual training program, dual training system. This is in partnership with the industry. So last year, we coordinated, early last year, we coordinated with the BIR. So we now have a joint training with the district collectors of the BIR, the RDO, the district officers, so that they will be aware of the provisions of the law. Kaya ito nagte-take off na yung dual training system. So just to inform everyone, kasi may incentives dito for those companies that will be allowing our graduates to train in their respective companies. Thank you.
Ma'am Lina, thank you very much for bringing out the virtual assistants. Totoo po yan dun sa industriya ng BPO at nakikita po namin na madami po talagang virtual assistant. We can help you, get the best practices and also connect you with people engaged in virtual assistants if needed.
Yes. Yeah, we are open to sit down with you kasi syempre wala naman ito sa aming training regulations, but sabi nga namin, we are here to serve our countrymen. Ano bang kailangan nila na trabaho? So we can provide the necessary training program so that they can be skilled. Kasi nga itong virtual assistant, this was raised to us, and siguro usap na lang tayo later.
Sige po.
So ang key takeaway dyan is really linking with the industry because sila naman talaga yung nakakaalam ng mga pangangailangan. And thank you for that insight, Ma'am Lina, and for the sharing. And thank you also, Sir Philip, for the offer of help to TESDA. Nick?
So having that said, we now go with the fourth industrial revolution, or how technology has defined or is defining the workplace. So kanina nabanggit natin yung emergence of the virtual assistants, 'di ba? Nowadays it's very prevalent and marami tayong pangangailangan on that. So how is technology helping us, or how can technology define the workplace?
Okay. So let me start. So starting with the virtual assistant. Before there were just assistants. Now, because of the fourth industrial revolution, which is technology, we can now have virtual assistant. But you have to also put into mind that it's not simply translating what you do not virtually to virtual, no? Because number one, we need to understand the technologies involved. There are so many platforms and there are so many gadgets nowadays that we need to understand and we need to work closely with, because these are tools that has certain issues and certain upside, no? So one issue, number one, is your privacy. Your privacy has been before you can take an app, you have to put in your privacy, and data privacy is very important, which is really good for that. Philippines has been doing that quite well. But the focus on these tools, the usage of, let's say, Zoom, the usage of different platforms to communicate, these are important, and these are the things that people and job seekers should be trying to do. Connectivity is another issue, but then again, we have to look at the forefront of it in the next 2 to 3 years, or probably 5 years. Technology will be the forefront of everything that we do, as long as the COVID-19 is still present. And therefore, what we need to do is to really have that skills and upskilling done through virtually and practice. No, so it's very very important for our countrymen to really understand what technology is about. It's not something that will replace them, but actually should be seen as enabler, or enabling them to be able to do their task um, more importantly. Kasi ngayon, even mga hirers would be asking for multitasking. So, pwedeng gawin lahat yan, and technology, applications, and platforms can help you multiply those tasks. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that and somehow reminding our workers na the emergence of perhaps AI, or the big picture of fourth industrial revolution is not to replace our workers but to help them to efficiently deliver the work. And siguro we should proceed now from the labor sector insight on the effects of technology in the workplace, ma'am.
We can
Yes,
Ramon.
yeah, thank you for that. Actually, uh, there are, of course, there are peers among, of course, from the labor force that technology will be a threat in in the preservation of employment, and there might be job disruption. There might be a job loss, but of course, when there is a job loss, there also job creation, no, that would come up, particularly on the new or emerging job uh, that will be coming up. And going back to that issue, no, that of course technology will be will becoming a thing coming in the future, will be to enable us to be more productive and more capable to be more competitive. But also we have to take a look also on the issue of how technology could absorb labor. So yun, meaning the labor absorptive capacity. If we try to look, of course, we still have to look that manufacturing in itself could generate more employment, particularly on the labor-intensive sectors, production. So we have to balance that, no? on that aspect. And secondly, there were attempts, no, to cope up with these changes and technology by imposing some measures, particularly the flexible work arrangement, digitalizing work, the work from home arrangement. But hirap naman i-apply, no? It's difficult to apply in manufacturing because you cannot uh, bring machines, equipment from factory to home. But also, you have to take a look on the some aspect of that, no? If you really try to maximize that potential. Like for example, again, going back to garment industry, wherein uh, the garment industry is very old industry and we have skilled workers, no? Uh, medyo matatanda na rin, kumbaga. But they have skill, no? And they, given the proper equipment, they could really produce, no? Because they have skill and they can produce uh, the product that the industry demand. So may ganung potential. And looking at the side that the technology will bring in our workers' potentials, we also saw some issues, particularly on the online workers will be subjected to substandard working conditions, no? Because ang hirap mo i-monitor yan, no, na sometimes they spend many hours, so they have irregular work and income, irregular income. We heard from the BAs, the virtual assistants, receiving before, nung nagtatry pa siya na maigi, they receive more than $5 an hour. But now they only receive 3 hours, $3 less in an hour. Kasi very competitive na rin. You have to acquire different skills. And workers also from online platform has have lack of access to social protection. They are not being provided with social security. They have no right to organize as an organization because they work individually. They have no collective bargaining rights. So those are the issues that also we need to address. But technology will really define the way the workplace will be in the future. But we have to be prepared. That's why in the labor front, we just come up with a just transition measures, that indicating all the necessary uh, factors that we need to take into account in our discussion with the industry and the government for coming up with a policy.
And with that, no, I
Yeah.
will connect it now on how we can future-proof our workforce, given the challenges mentioned earlier, like the emergence of the fourth industrial revolution and the challenges posted by the pandemic.
Yeah.
Perhaps Sir Ramon, Sir Anton rather, sorry.
Yeah, may I just add to what my colleague Mr. Certeza said? I agree with what he said. Our and you know the employers and the labor sector can work together. Our collective job is to usher the informal sector, the players there, no, be it family run companies, be it medium-sized companies trying to be small to be under the radar, to usher them onto the formal, so that you know they start getting bigger and they start getting SSS, all these social protection measures. That is our collective strategy as industry players, no, labor and employers. The the thing there is to find out why are these guys trying to be under the radar. You know, there are we discuss about the intrusive measures sa LGU side and all other aspects. No? So I think in that area, when you add the issue of productivity and when you add the issue of mechanization, etc. No? For example, we were talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and one thing that's very close to me is the food sector, you have three basic industries there, and all these factors come into play in those industries. No? And these are bottling, dehydration, and canning. So there are many. Unfortunately, not all of those find their way as training regulations. No? Dehydration, you need good engineers on freeze drying, on all these modern technologies, no? Especially those that are solar powered, those that exploit our natural resources. No? So yung what I just wanted to stress, yung tinatawag ng mga academics, yung population dividend, we really have this resource of 15 to 40-year-olds comprising 70 to 80% of the population. Unfortunately, a big portion of our educated class have TVET courses. No? From high school, they go into TVET, and only about 15 to 18% go to college and finish. So that's why the upskilling and reskilling cuts across everything that we all do. No? And precisely what I was going to say, resilience is a function of knowledge, and with knowledge, you can strategize as a company, as a person. No? So your agility, being a multitasker means that you should read a lot, converse a lot, talk to a lot of people. And my point is, we want to come up with policy instruments together with you. And what I wanted to ask is yung mga OFWs. We talk to a lot of them that are doing a lot of science matters, no? And at some point we would like to talk to Asik Dicky and to Ma'am Lina to see how we can, those who are on furlough and who are not willing to work abroad, or those who might even want to work abroad, to upskill them and give them a career path using the ladderized law, and where the private sector can help in the assessment and certification. So PCCI, we have PCHRDF that can help in the organization of assessment experts, so that the recognition of prior learning of our OFWs who have 2 years of college, for example, but have 5 to 10 years of experience, can be assessed on that basis, and maybe TESDA can give them a year or two of more courses to take now for them to get their degrees. And I mean, we'd like to work with specific programs that we can handle, and I think we would be off to a good start if we do that. Thank you.
So earlier, DDG Lina mentioned some programs and initiatives on the formulation and improvements of the training regulations of TESDA pertaining to the skills and trainings that our workers can undergo. And on this note, we would like to hear your thoughts on the possible areas of collaboration between the government, the industry, and our labor groups, as well as with the national government agencies, on how we can move forward with the pandemic and the post-pandemic future. Starting off with, I guess, Sir Philip.
Okay. So I just have 3 points, and this is mostly collaboration with the government as we normally do. Number 1 is on the education. Also future proofing our our graduates, and to TESDA also for those who are already into upskilling. We need to, the pandemic has created a lot of issues, but also created a lot of opportunities and learning. So number 1, in that pandemic, we understand that technology will be in the forefront of the dynamics of work, and therefore we should always continue to align what we teach our students now into the future. So very good that Dole has made this information available. So if I were to look for a job in the future, it has something to do with the jobs that were listed already in this report. And therefore, I should now pivot as a student. What are the courses that will make me more employable into the future? So education. But one thing to call out on education is that we do not have coding as a mechanism for creating platforms and websites. That's very important. In fact, when you look at the different ASEAN nation in Hong Kong, 10-year-olds are being taught now how to code computers, something that we still do not have as a formal line of education. Second is that in this pandemic, we know the vulnerable sectors, the SMEs. How can we help them provide support on those SMEs? Because these are SMEs, as Anton would say, entrepreneurs who can start up and be created amongst all other regions, can spread out, not just in Metro Manila, because SMEs can be all over the world, or all over the country. So how can we support them in terms of tax policies? How can we help them in terms of creating those jobs and ease out the doing business? So that also works in the LGU. But more importantly, I think, is that how can we align all of the information that are gathered today in making sure that they are implemented and influencing our labor force in the future? That's it.
Thank you, Sir Philip. How about Sir Ramon?
I think I'm still really hopeful that something will come up in the future. No? But and I would really still believe that collaboration between the industry players, the government, and the labor market institutions, including trade unions, are really important. And I also believe that a continuing social dialogue, and most specifically a sectoral dialogue, should be pushed through, because that's what we are advocating for long. Uh, there are there are many industries that has potential, but those industries and sector has their own specifics, meaning they have their own characteristics. You cannot generalize a policy for all industry. They have their own need, they have their own demand, and they have to collaborate, the players in those specific industries. That's why even in the ILO, in the International Labor Organization here in Manila, as well as with the Department of Labor and Employment, we are really pushing for coming up or strengthening our existing tripartite structure mechanism. We have industry tripartite councils, but in very few sectors, and we are pushing for more because we identified already the potential sectors in industry. We have services, manufacturing, and even in manufacturing, there are many sectors, and we are trying to come up with a proposed mechanism to have an avenue for discussion with the industry players. Like for example, we are proposing for the mining industry tripartite councils for many years, but we're still waiting for the other sectors to come in, for the employers association in the mining, for the chamber of mines. We are pushing for the reviving of the electronics industry tripartite councils. So I think it's really need to define the roles of different players in the as well as the policy makers. What are their roles and what are the responsibility to really build our industry that could really absorb our labor force. And secondly, there are policies that we need to push through, like in partnership with TESDA, for example, we need to come up with an active labor market policy. So we have to strengthen our technical and skills development for our labor force. And secondly, another policy will be the redistribution policy together with NEDA and Department of Finance. So what will be the appropriate policy of the distribution? For example, the create bill, the train law, how could they be more coherent for our to attract more foreign investment? And thirdly, uh, of course, we still are pushing for it for many years already, decades, even decades, for our industrialization plan. So we have to come up with a real, a real national industrialization strategy that will catapult us in the future in combining with our endowed factors, versus the technology that we still have to acquire more. So I think that will be best to look into the coming days of our discussion with the social partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Ramon. May we hear insights as well from Sir Anton?
Sir, ano ka? Naka-mute.
Yan. I have identified 3 areas, no, for collaboration on a tripartite basis. One is the development of the micro enterprises. I did mention a while ago how this would help alleviate poverty as well. And they operate formally in an informal environment. No? So in other words, they lend and they analyze outside the box. No, I know that because I chair one of those microfinance companies. Although we are non-stock non-profit, we uh, there are subsectors in the micro enterprise field that can be urged to formalize now to start paying SSS, as I mentioned, and they do need a lot of funding. And what's good is when you make let's say 10 billion available to the microfinance sector, they can lend this, make this happen without any collateral, with training imbued together with the lending for the businesses of the micro entrepreneurs. How we collaborate on that would be in the area of scaling. We even the junk operators can be taught how to bail their cartons, their newspapers, how to handle their glasses, and some of them can even handle primary reprocessing of waste products into raw materials. So we don't give that much attention. There are framework conditions, supposedly, like the Bambi law, but let's make that happen, and let's put money to that. No, as I said, we used to put 78 billion per year in the food program. Why can we not put a portion of that to the informal micro entrepreneurs who, in effect, also have children working in those schools? The other aspect is I just want to stress on the training on not only of the OFWs, but also there's a portion in the alternative learning system under DepEd that can be fine-tuned towards STEM. And if we can develop a program over and beyond what the OST is already doing and what CHED is already doing in terms of education, if there is something that we can do where the labor sector and the employers can agree on an apprenticeship system, I think now is the right time to talk about it, because there are companies that are operating at 20%, some operating at 50%, some not operating at all. No. So if they can be, if some sort of a program can be agreed where you have this formal structure like the ALS under DepEd, and they can be taught online by TESDA, and then they can be taught on at the enterprise level as well. And there can be a joint certification and assessment that can be done to we can go with 50,000 or 100,000. DepEd has about 2 million of the alternative learning system registered with them. And then the third is agriculture development. We try to develop in our K-12 project. We made curriculum development in the area of mechatronics, in construction, and also in tourism and hotel management. And when we went to all these schools in Laia, for example, there were 3 schools that we visited. I saw a lot of area that has stopped doing agriculture classes, and when they introduced the 4 strands to add to 2 years in senior high school, there was arts and design, there was academic, there was TVET, and there was sports. No? So very few people took up TVET. So how can we encourage our youth to go to TVET in agriculture? No? And so what we even told them, we talked to the LAIA group. Some of them are operating again, the Resource Owners Association, and we told them, can you buy the salad vegetables from the public schools? No? But then they said, that's a business. That's it's more than a curriculum and stuff like that. But then that's the thing about collaboration. There will always be challenges, and you just have to put the right people with the right perspectives in the table to precisely transcend all those obstacles. There will always be difficulties because we're looking at things in a more creative, in a more out of the box fashion. And sometimes it's not about ideas. Sometimes it's just about basics of listening and analyzing the basic stuff. There are many more in our plate about AI, and about having the proper technology and the proper people to do that. No, but if we just put a 1-year horizon in working on the basics, that's going to be a lot of work in itself. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for a very fruitful discussion. And we were able to touch the sectors that play a vital role in the pandemic and the effects of the fourth industrial revolution to the workforce and the post-pandemic future. We were also able to identify the skills that the job seekers should possess in order to land a job, given the changes in the labor market. And our key takeaway for today, I guess, and we share the common idea of how important the collaboration between the public and the private sector is. And at this juncture, we have our friends from the media to raise their questions and clarification relative to the subject matter discussed a while ago. I guess we have in the floor Zandoro Ochona of DZMM, Dale De Vera of TV5, Dreo Calonzo of Bloomberg News. But as to the specific question, I guess Zandro Ochona of DCMM, the floor is yours. You can ask your question right now.
Hi, good morning po. Opo, Zandro Ochona po from DZMM and ABS-CBN News. Sirs and ma'ams, tanong ko lang po, ano po, although na-mention na kanina yung mga industries na patok ngayon despite the effects of the pandemic, for clarity lang po, pwede po bang paulit kung ano po yung mga in-demand na trabaho and the skill sets na hinahanap ng mga hirers natin?
Yung if I may start, no, yung kasi magmumula yan sa mga industriya na nagtatribe, na nagro-roll pa rin ngayon. No? So ito yung mga industries na lumabas sa aming survey. Of course, logistics industries, no. So pag logistics, marami mga basic dyan, yung inventory management, warehouse management. So anybody with basic skills, even in 2 years in college, can do basic admin work in a logistics company, which means that you can apply in a big company, o pwede ka mag-apply sa maliliit na kumpanya. Yung inventory management, even in a small company, small family operation, meron kang 3 grocery o 1 grocery, kailangan mo yung first in, first out, no? So yun yung mga basic skills na nandiyan. So logistics yan, telco and IT related sectors. No? So nandiyan yung IT BPO. Yung threat sa call center, 2 years pa yan. So meron 2 taon, pero habang nagtatrabaho ka sa call center, dapat inaayos mo yung STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, basic skills, no? So the other industries would be hygiene related, alcohol, PP, mass detergents, sa delivery riders, logistical support, import-export requirements, healthcare services, hospitals, cleaning, disinfection services. I mentioned call centers, education and training, and I'm sure Mr. Philip can tell you more while I look at my list some more. Thank you.
Okay. So actually nasabi na halos lahat ni Anton yung mga listahan. Just let me just re-emphasize another point on those thriving industries. One of them is they actually offer two options. One is work from home setup or flexible working arrangement, and also going to face to face. Okay, especially in the construction and building, of course, those are important. But you have to understand that these skill sets may differ. They have a commonality, but you have different ways. And I think our friend Ramon here can explain more on the face-to-face requirements as currently we are experiencing during the pandemic.
In addition to that, perhaps I could also add that I said a while ago that considering that there will be new opening in the mining projects, that there are a lot of mining operations are about to start this year. There will be need for mining workers as well as mining engineers. But responding to Sir Philip's question on how to deal with this face to face, I think that's why there still need to do more collaboration with the employers group as well in looking up how we can take some measures to respond to the issue of the protocols that are being laid down by the guidelines of the IATF in the face-to-face. But of course, we will going to expect, no, expect natin that there will be some more easing out of some of the restrictions. But unless, of course, vaccines are being rolled out, there is still a risk, no? And we might have bound by the guidelines set by the Department of Labor and Employment as well as the IATF. And secondly, I'm trying to look yung potentials nabanggit ko rin kanina about the garment sector. There are talks about repurposing. And I am not, sinasabi nila that it might not be considered as, touching the economies of scale and how big the projects will be for the garment industry. But there are still potential. So one potential would be we can still utilize the European Union generalized system of preference, that we can have a market uh, for our garment produce, particularly for those products that are in line with the harmonized system under the certain category. And we can take that up as one of the potential. Secondly, uh, the other supplier countries, like for example, Myanmar, they have a problem in Myanmar. Excuse me. And Myanmar is also a huge supplier of apparel products. So alam naman natin na Myanmar has a current coup d'etat, no? So may problema. So most probably other buyers would source out from the Philippines as well, because we still have our ready production facilities here that could supply to major brands and retailers. So those are the things that in the manufacturing sector, we think that could still thrive in the coming future, including the electronic sector still as our number one uh, export generator. Thank you.
Leo Calonzo of Bloomberg News.
Magandang umaga po, sirs, ma'ams. Anybody can answer this question. Also, given all the studies we've conducted, when do you see the labor market recovering to its pre-pandemic state po?
Any one of you guys can answer.
Napapangiti ako.
Yeah,
Okay.
hindi. Well, kasi medyo quick lang. Everybody's waiting for the vaccine, you know, and some are more aggressive in procuring than others. So my answer to that is those that procure it in a more aggressive fashion in all aspects, funding, logistics, connection, will get the vaccine. Let's just hope that the people in government tasked to do so actually do their jobs. Thank you.
So just to add to that, we have seen the signs of a bounce back, or what we call, bouncing back of the market, because the number of jobs and vacancies has improved significantly from the time or when the lockdown was implemented. So very, very optimistic that the labor market will be increasing. But then again, there is a caveat. It all depends on how efficiently we roll out the vaccines, and also continuously improving our protocols as it is deemed fit into the workspace. So, but hopefully all the signs are there and it's going to move up very soon.
Ito pong study natin na nilabas, was the vaccine rollout factored in? Kasi meron dun sa mga um, parang ano tawag dito, mga magiging in-demand na jobs up until 2022. I think ang number one pa is retail. But I mean, retail was heavily affected by the pandemic. So, yun lang po, was the vaccine rollout factored in? And second, yung curious case lang of why is retail still the top, I mean, has the brightest prospects among all the industries.
Nung ginawa po natin yung midterm update, we did not take into consideration the vaccine. Wala pa po yun sa usapan, and wala pa po talaga rin even in all the consultations that we conducted. But why retail is still on top? Because when we say retail, pinag-uusapan natin kanina yung fourth industrial revolution. It has to do something with online retail. So hindi ho yan yung as we see prior to pandemic pa. Thank you.
It also shows that we have a strong domestic market. We have been saying export orientation is important. We're saying that foreign direct investments are necessary. But what this shows is we have a very vibrant domestic economy.
Doon lang po sa na-mention din po sa report yung underemployment. So it was flagged there that it's an equally important concern. So how do we plan also to address this po?
Well, siguro sir, yung underemployment kasi, it has something to do with the quality of jobs that's being produced by the economy. So yung mga investments po natin in the future, hopefully that they will provide a stable employment. They will translate into stable employment for our people. And it also has something to do with the hours of work. So alam naman ho natin ngayon na marami pa rin under flexible work arrangements, and one of the schemes in the flexible work arrangements ay yun pong pagkaltas doon sa oras o araw po ng ating mga manggagawa. So, moving forward, nakita naman po natin over time in 2020, nag-improve naman po yung ating underemployment situation kung ikukumpara natin on a quarterly basis of the labor force survey in 2020. And hoping that after the pandemic po, given the new emerging markets or given the new key employment generating industries po, ma-address po yung problema ng underemployment, because over time po nakita po natin yung trends that underemployment is really improving in the country.
Ma'am, last na lang po from me. I think there was a plan from NEDA and PSA to conduct the labor force survey monthly, right? So did this push through, and if you're aware, can you give us an idea how the employment picture is last month? Yun po.
Yung pong, yes, tuloy po yung monthly survey starting this year. Yung pong January labor force survey round has already been conducted, and the results will come out probably first or second week of March. And then there's another survey conducted in February. So may lag time ho yan yung sa processing. But what is important is makikita ho natin ngayon, maybe just for this year, yung monthly results po ng labor force survey beginning March.
Thank you, sirs
Alright.
and ma'ams.
Thank you, Dreo. I guess that's all. Or we have a follow-up question from DZMM.
Yes po, opo. Pahabol lang po. Since parang na-mention na very dependent po pala yung pagbalik natin pre-pandemic sa vaccines. So maybe we can ito yung panahon for our workers to catch up with the skills that are needed dun sa mga hirers. Ano po kaya I guess this is for TESDA and Dole. Ano po kaya yung steps para yung mga kababayan natin makapaghanda doon sa mga upcoming skill sets na kailangan sa mga trabaho in the future?
For TESDA, kailangan nilang talagang mag-aral. We are ready to absorb them, accept them. They just have to communicate with us, download the TESDA app. Meron kaming TESDA app, and then they can enroll through the TESDA app, or they can proceed to our TESDA website, www.tesda.gov.ph. We have a 3-step enrollment platform there, very easy. Kung ano yung kailangan nilang course, especially dun sa area kung nasaan sila, makipag-ugnayan sila sa amin kasi talagang right now we are aggressively consulting with the industry kasi kailangan nating magtulungan talaga para maibigay yung kailangan ng industry kasi kung i-train namin at hindi naman pala yun ang kailangan, sayang. So TESDA is ready. We are prepared to absorb and train them so that they will have the necessary skills when the jobs or the new skills requirements are open to them. Yun lang ang aking masasabi. Talaga we are really looking for scholars para makatulong tayo sa mga kababayan natin.
Naman po, information dissemination such as Diaspora is one move, and then the other po is the conduct of online career fair. This is in partnership po with the private sector, and then siguro po sa mga susunod po na this year we will also be deploying the online life skills training po para sa ating mga kabataan.
Zandro, magdadagdag lang ako, parang career advisor from Jobsfit. Okay. Medyo mahirap kasi yung tanong mo because that really is more specific to dun sa job seeker. So yung job seeker, kailangan alamin muna niya ano ba yung status niya ngayon. And then ano ba yung gusto niyang puntahan in the future. That's where you can decipher dun sa job seeker kung ano yung kailangang skills niya. Pero dapat niya tandaan yung mga trabaho in the future na sinasabi natin may or may not be the same na meron siya ngayon. So it's really important that alamin ko muna ano yung gusto kong maging para in the next 2 years pasok ako sa TESDA o pasok ako sa online schooling para malaman ko kung ano yung kailangan ko pa. So it's really more of deciphering internally kung ano yung gusto niyang makuhang skill set. But definitely, and it's all general, everyone would need to be reskilled because of the new normal and also upgrade our skills in the new normal.
Ayun. Maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you very much once again, Didi Jelina, Sir Anton, Sir Philip, Sir Ramon, and of course, Asik Nikki, for your generosity of time and expertise. And we still hope to see you in our future activities to discuss more of these matters. Thank you as well to our friends from the media, from BZMM, Bloomberg, and TV5. And at this point, I would like to call on once again Asik Nikki to say a few words for our participants and viewers.
Okay, maraming salamat po sa ating mga panelists, si Sir Anton, si Sir Ramon, si Sir Philip, at saka si Ma'am Lina. Sa ngalan po ng aming kalihim, Silvestre Rebello III, maraming salamat po for taking time to join us, sa atin pong mga friends in media, and those joining us live via Facebook.
Facebook Live.
So sana po na nakatulong po sa inyo yung Jobsfit Labor Market Information Report and how COVID-19 has really affected our labor market. And marami pong insights. I'm truly inspired by the sharing of information and insights from our panelists because maidudugtong ko po ito mga ma'am at sir doon sa ginagawa po natin na National Employment Recovery Strategy. You've mentioned a lot of policies and program recommendations which we can do some fine prints and find their way into the National Employment Recovery Strategy. Siguro naririnig nyo na ho yan, and we have presented that also to the President and the Cabinet, and we are really overwhelmed by the support of all the stakeholders when we are presenting it. So yung mga fine details po, alam kong malaki po ang mga maitutulong ng ating mga panelists sa pagdetalya na po natin ng action plan which will start next week na po. Magko-call po kami ng engagements with you para matulungan din po ang pamahalaan. Because we know that the recovery from this pandemic, it's not just about the government, but it's about the whole of society approach. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Asek Nikki. To our guests, once again, thank you, media friends and viewers via Facebook Live. This is the Kapihan Media Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Sir
Sensya na
Anton.
kayo na wala ako
Salamat
sa
po.
gate.
Marlina.
Thank
Asik
you.
Nikki.
Bye, DG.
Thank you po.
Philip,
Thank you for inviting
Bye,
us.
Asek. Bye. Bye, sirs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Philip, yung contact details ko, I sent them to you.
Salamat sa inyo guys. Very good.